Welcome tonight. We open a file that was never meant to be found. Beneath the freezing waters of the Baltic Sea, a discovery shook everything we thought we knew about what sleeps below. They said it was a rock. They said it was nothing. But some truths refuse to stay buried. Get ready to hear the story of the Baltic Sea anomaly. The launch of Apollo 11 was not just a triumph. It was a message to the world and to the stars. July 16th, 1969, Cape Kennedy. Thousands watched as the Saturn V rocket roared to life, flames swallowing the dawn sky. The earth trembled as three men, Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins, ascended into history. To the public, it was a mission of courage. To NASA, it was something else. For weeks before launch, engineers had been quietly warned about unexpected anomalies in the radio systems. Signals from deep space that weren't supposed to be there. Frequencies that hummed long after transmission ceased. No one wanted to talk about it, but it was written in the logs. Inside Mission Control, the air was electric. Rows of engineers, hundreds of screens, red lights flickering. Every heartbeat synchronized with the radio feed from space. Armstrong's voice came through the speakers. Calm, clear, controlled. "Houston, Eagle has wings, everything nominal." The room exhaled. Applause. Cheers. The world was listening. But miles away, in a smaller locked-down section of NASA's communications center, one room wasn't celebrating. The Deep Space Channel. Only a handful of men had clearance to monitor it, and according to later testimonies, that's where it happened first. A faint pulse. Not from the capsule. Not from Earth. A third signal. It followed Apollo 11 all the way to the moon, and when the spacecraft slipped behind the lunar horizon, contact with Earth was supposed to drop. Radio blackout for 2 minutes. Everyone knew it. But at 2:36 UTC, something else happened. The feed cut out, not gradually, but violently. Static, then silence. For exactly 2 minutes and 37 seconds, Mission Control had nothing. Then Armstrong's voice returned. "Houston, do you copy?" He sounded shaken. A pause, then static again. The official transcripts skipped that section entirely. NASA called it a transmission dropout, but leaked audio, recovered years later by amateur archivists, told another story. A whisper, buried beneath static. "They're enormous. They're watching us." The voice was Armstrong's. The words, never broadcast live. After the mission, NASA technicians tried to locate the source of the interference. They found that during the blackout, a secondary channel, used for telemetry, had picked up faint radio tones, repeating tones, mathematically structured, like a beacon. The pattern didn't match any known human signal. It originated from the far side of the moon. One engineer wrote in his private notebook, later declassified, "Signal consistent with intelligent modulation, not random noise. Source unknown." The note was redacted in every official release. When Apollo 11 landed in the Sea of Tranquility, Armstrong's first steps were broadcast to the world. But behind the live feed, another team was working, quietly, decoding the signal that had followed them across 384,000 kilometers of space. NASA's Deep Space Network labeled it Artifact X-15. They claimed it stopped once the lunar module powered down. But one technician swore it continued for 2 full hours, even after the astronauts slept. It was as if something on the moon had responded. After Armstrong and Aldrin returned to Earth, they were isolated in quarantine, officially for contamination control. unofficially, to be questioned. Not by medical staff, by men from the Department of Defense. One nurse later told a reporter she overheard a voice, calm, authoritative. "Tell us what you saw on the ridge." Armstrong didn't answer. He only whispered, "You wouldn't believe me." Weeks later, a technician at NASA's Goddard Space Center was ordered to destroy certain telemetry tapes. He asked what was on them. The reply, just noise. He hesitated and made a copy. That copy resurfaced in 1994, mislabeled in a university archive. The audio was heavily degraded, but through the static, the same pattern could be heard. Faint, rhythmic pulses spaced 22 seconds apart. It wasn't noise. It was a response. In 2006, when NASA officially admitted that the original Apollo 11 tapes were lost, the reason seemed innocent. Old data management, tape recycling, human error. But the internal memo leaked months later told another story. The tapes were not lost. They were secured. Transfer complete. Transfer to where? No one knows. Armstrong never spoke publicly about those missing minutes, but Buzz Aldrin once did. In a 1999 interview, one that was quickly pulled from syndication, he said, "There was something out there, something bigger than us, watching." The interviewer laughed nervously. Aldrin didn't. That was the last time anyone in the Apollo program mentioned the blackout. NASA called it interference. Others called it contact, but the signal never disappeared. It simply changed frequency. And if you tune carefully enough, even now, you can still hear it. A faint echo across the void, repeating, waiting. It started with a rumor. In 1972, 3 years after Apollo 11, a contractor named James McMullen claimed he'd found something buried deep inside NASA's data vault. A reel labeled, simply, DSN 11421, TRNS, Lost Segment. He was told to catalog it, then destroy it. But curiosity and arrogance got the better of him. When he played it, he didn't hear white noise. He heard voices, faint, distant, metallic, like whispers echoing inside a machine. And under it, the same rhythmic pulse, steady, calculated, like a heartbeat that wasn't human. He played it again, and the machine jammed. Within 24 hours, McMullen's clearance was revoked. By week's end, his employment was terminated. He disappeared 2 months later. His wife said men in Tianjin suits came to their home, asking questions about a tape. She never saw him again. The story might have died there, just another Cold War mystery, if not for a leak in 1981. A former technician from the Deep Space Network, Charles Redding, anonymously mailed a small audio reel to a ham radio club in Arizona. Attached was a note. They said it was interference. Listen carefully. It's not. When the club played the tape, they heard bursts of static and distorted voices. But one section was clear enough to transcribe. A voice, calm and professional. "Houston, do you copy?" Then silence. Then another voice, low, deliberate. "You are not alone." NASA immediately denied it. They called the recording an elaborate hoax, but the frequencies matched the S-band transmission Apollo used in 1969. Impossible to fake. Reporters started digging. One journalist, Lydia Hart from the Washington Post, requested NASA's archived Apollo 11 telemetry. 3 weeks later, her editor received a call from someone claiming to be from the Department of Defense. He was told to stand down. Lydia resigned 2 days later. Her apartment was found empty. The tape? Gone. By the late 1980s, whispers about the lost transmission turned into obsession. Amateur astronomers claimed to detect faint signals on the same 2.3 GHz band Apollo had used. repeating at exact intervals every 22.4 seconds. Always the same pattern. 3 pulses, 1 pause, 3 pulses. Binary code. The universal language. But no one could trace the source. It wasn't from Earth, and it wasn't from the moon. It was coming from somewhere between. In 1992, a classified memo from the National Reconnaissance Office leaked online for just 12 minutes before being scrubbed from every server. Its title, ARI Signal Repeat, Artifact X-15, Priority Red. Only one paragraph survived, copied by someone who screenshot the text before it vanished. Object remains in synchronous orbit, emitting same pattern as DSN 11-421. Containment advised. Observation ongoing. No coordinates, no names, just that. An object, still transmitting, still watching. Around the same time, retired NASA communications officer William Snyder gave a single interview to a small late-night AM radio show. He was nervous, sweating. His voice trembled. People think NASA's biggest secret was what we saw on the moon. It wasn't. It was what followed us home. When asked what he meant, he paused, then said quietly, "We started receiving signals before Apollo 11 even launched. Something was already waiting for us up there, listening." He died of a heart attack 2 weeks later. The recording of that interview vanished from the station's archives. In 2003, long after NASA had claimed the Apollo tapes were lost, a team of archivists at Maryland Institute of Technology, cataloging Cold War recordings, stumbled upon a damaged box labeled MISC space. Inside, rusted reels, badly magnetized. One bore a NASA code, 11421, TUNS BCKP. They restored 40 seconds. First, static. Then Armstrong's voice. "They're here. They've been here for a long time." Then silence, and a low mechanical hum. Deep, layered, almost like multiple frequencies overlapping. At the 38-second mark, a new tone emerged, different from the others. Slow, drawn out, a sequence of 4 descending notes. Mathematically precise, artificial. When analyzed through a spectrogram, it revealed a pattern, like coordinates, but the coordinates didn't point to the moon. They pointed to Earth, specifically to a location in the South Pacific. Latitude, 4509. Longitude, 143.2. An empty patch of ocean. At least it used to be. Satellite imaging from that region showed something. A shadow beneath the waves, roughly 60 meters wide, perfectly circular. The same shape captured decades later in the Baltic Sea anomaly. It wasn't coincidence. It was movement. The same signal, the same hum, detected again. As if what they saw on the moon had found its way home. In 2009, a NASA spokesperson was asked, off record, about the lost Apollo transmission. He smiled politely and said, "The only thing we lost was time." But inside Building 8 at Johnson Space Center, the classified storage room that once held the Apollo reels still hums faintly, even when the power is off. Technicians joke that it's the ghosts of the tapes, but the older ones don't laugh. Because if you put your ear close enough to the steel door, you can still hear it. That same soft pulse. Not random, not dead. It happened again, 40 years later. August 2010, a monitoring station in Canberra, Australia, part of NASA's Deep Space Network, recorded an anomaly on a decommissioned frequency band. The 2.3 GHz S-band, the same channel used by Apollo 11 in 1969. At first, they thought it was interference. An echo from a communication satellite, a solar flare, maybe a glitch. But the signature didn't match any known pattern. The pulse was identical. Every 22.4 seconds, 3 tones, pause, 3 more. Exactly like the signal from the lost Apollo transmission. One engineer, Dr. Helen Cross, ran a frequency analysis What she found made no sense. The wave wasn't random. It carried structure, a repeating sequence of harmonics, too deliberate to be natural. When she mapped it visually, through a spectrogram, the pattern formed a grid, and then lines, curved, symmetrical, almost like a design. Her colleague leaned over the monitor. "That looks like an image," Cross frowned. "Images don't transmit on radio waves like this." And yet, the longer she processed the data, the clearer it became. At first it was chaos, then shadows, shapes, contours of something circular. Then came definition, a ridge, a structure, and on its side, what looked like markings, not letters, not numbers, something older, geometric, repeating. She enhanced the image and froze. The shape matched the Apollo 11 lunar coordinates, the same ridge Armstrong's team had landed near, the same place he'd whispered about during those 2 lost minutes. Within 24 hours, the data was confiscated. NASA arrived unannounced. Black vans, sealed containers, men with no insignias. They took the drives, the backup servers, even the paper printouts. One of them told Dr. Cross quietly, "This is above your clearance. You didn't record this. You didn't hear this." Then they left. That night, she received an email from an unknown address. No text, just a single attachment, 421.wave. It was the same signal, the same hum, but this time, beneath the pulse, a whisper, a human voice. When slowed down, filtered, and stretched across the frequency spectrum, it revealed the words. Faint, distorted, but unmistakable. "We found you." The next morning, Dr. Cross vanished. Her office was cleared within hours. Her ID access revoked. Her apartment emptied. The official record listed her as relocated for classified research. No one ever saw her again. 2 weeks later, an anonymous file surfaced on an encrypted message board used by radio astronomers. It contained raw frequency logs from that same night, identical to the Canberra readings, but stronger, cleaner, and in the metadata. Origin: lunar surface. The coordinates: the exact same as Apollo 11's landing site. When NASA was questioned, they called it a hoax. Digital forgery, probably AI-generated noise. But the agency quietly issued an internal alert. Monitor for additional transmissions on frequency 2.3 GHz. Do not engage. At 0342 UTC the following morning, the signal repeated, worldwide. Picked up by independent listening stations from Chile to Japan. This time, it lasted for 72 seconds. The same duration as the WOW, signal detected in 1977. Only one line of data was readable, a set of numbers. 450914302. Latitude, longitude, South Pacific, the same empty patch of ocean. A private satellite later photographed that area. What it captured shouldn't exist. Beneath the surface, barely visible through the currents, lay something circular, massive, and metallic. A pattern of ridges and markings identical to those seen on the moon. The same symbol that Armstrong saw, the same one that spoke, and the hum. It hasn't stopped since. It only got louder. The ocean was silent that night. No ships, no storms, just stillness and the hum. It began faintly, like a low vibration deep under the surface of the South Pacific. Then satellites started detecting it again. 2.3 GHz. The same signal, the same pulse. Only this time, it wasn't coming from above. It was coming from below. A network of hydrophones, part of the U.S. Navy's SOSUS system, picked it up first. A perfect triple pulse, repeating every 22 seconds. Engineers thought it was a malfunction, until they realized every sensor across the globe was picking it up. synchronized. The same hum, everywhere. From the Arctic to the Indian Ocean, from the Mariana Trench to the Baltic Sea, one sound, one frequency, resonating through the planet like a heartbeat. And when they layered the sound waves on top of each other, they formed a pattern, a face. Not human, but familiar. Smooth contours, deep voids where eyes should be. The same silhouette that Armstrong had described to the technicians before his debrief. Tall, smooth, watching. At NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, an emergency meeting was called. No press, no recordings. One scientist broke protocol and hit record anyway. The leaked audio later surfaced online for a few hours before it was scrubbed. A man's voice can be heard saying, "It's not a signal anymore. It's a reflection." Another replies, "A reflection of what?" The answer comes, almost a whisper, "Of us." 2 weeks later, electrical grids began to flicker across continents. Communication satellites glitched, broadcasting fragments of static that sounded eerily like breathing. And somewhere within that static, a message. The same one that had haunted NASA since 1969. "We found you." But this time, it continued. "Now, listen." What came next wasn't a transmission. It was an image, a signal encoded into every satellite feed, every radar sweep, every GPS signal. For less than half a second, the image appeared. A crater, a ridge, and a structure. Black, monolithic, rising out of lunar dust. The same coordinates from Apollo 11. The same ridge Armstrong went silent over. But there was something new in the image. A reflection, bright, blue, round. Earth. Within hours, NASA's public site went offline. Major observatories reported maintenance outages. The Deep Space Network went silent, and then nothing. No hum, no signal, just static. The silence felt heavier than sound, but a few amateur astronomers continued to listen. And one of them, a man from rural Finland, posted a simple update before his account vanished. "It's still here, only quieter. Like it's waiting for us to answer." Now, decades later, the same hum still appears every year. July 20th, the anniversary of the moon landing. Exactly at 02:36 UTC, the moment Apollo 11 went dark. If you tune your receiver carefully, under the static, you can still hear it. 3 pulses, a pause, 3 more. Like a heartbeat echoing through time, through oceans, through us. And maybe, after all these years, the truth was never about what we saw on the moon. Maybe it was about what the moon saw in us.